Hello guys, welcome to Ch13 and to diagonal clearance. We start our video with the game of Durao against Ulster. At the first sight, very simple position. White is pretty developed, attacking on king side, and the bishop on b2 is really good. Keeping an eye on g7 pawn, as well as the queen on g3, keeping an eye on g7 pawn, which gives ideas to white that actually he can do something to make the knight on f6 go away and clear the diagonal. The move that was played in the game is really strong. So after knight d7, if not knight d7 and for example white just goes knight f3 or any quiet move, then black is in time to defend the g7 pawn and afterwards develop with bishop b7. So knight d7 was played in the game, and the point is that black actually cannot take knight d7 because of the mate on g7. Knight d7 and queen d7 or bishop d7. It's all the same, but there is very nice thing what happens on knight h5. If knight h5, then of course if white goes queen g5 or queen g4, black will simply take on d7 and there is nothing special after queen h5. But on knight h5, white again has a brilliant tactic. Knight f6, bishop f6 and g6. This is the only move to protect from the mate. And after queen g5, there is no defense of queen h6, queen g7 mate. The same thing happens if black takes queen d7, which was actually played in the game, and after bishop f6, g6, and queen g5 with the same idea, queen h6 and queen g7 mate, black decided to resign. So let's move on to another game, and this is the game Agard against Lundin. On the first sight, it seems that black pieces are pretty bad. The bishop on d7 is not doing anything, and the knight on c5 is a great blockade. But black has a big advantage, which is g-file, which cuts the white king to go anywhere else and creates the ideas to clear the diagonal. Let's see how black managed to do that. d4. So the idea is very simple. This bishop wants to get to d5 to mate the king. So it is at the same time square clearance and diagonal clearance as well. Bishop d4 was played in the game. Of course, it's obvious that white cannot move the bishop because the knight on c5 is hanging, and he's not in time to take the bishop on d7, because after d takes e3, white simply loses the piece because the queen is under attack and the knight is under attack as well. So bishop d4 was played, and after knight d4, queen d4. Of course, if knight d4, then black can just take bishop c5, and there is a terrible pin, as well as black just managed to win the piece. So queen d4, and after bishop e6, we see that knight c6, knight e6 is not possible because the knight is pinned on c5. c4 is the only move to protect the d5 square. But after c4, rook a d8, white queen is not able to protect all the pieces, the pawn on c4 and the knight on c5. So bishop e3 was played in the game, and after bishop c4, white just resigned because there is no defense of bishop d5. Either white is mated, either loses a lot of material. And now let's see the game Freeman against Rabinovich, and this is very lovely and simple example of clearing the diagonal. We have the Carlsbad structure. Black is castled but not yet developed. Of course, also white is not so much developed, but now he has ideas to clear the diagonal and win some material. So if we imagine again and take the knight from c3, then we would see that there is a huge threat which actually traps the queen with bishop a5. The bishop on f1 is really strong, cutting all white squares for black queen. So in the game it was played knight a4, queen d8. But what do you think? What was the idea of knight a4? As there is no bishop a5 anymore, can you find a winning move? I hope you did it. So that's it. That's knight b6. And now the rook is trapped. The pawn on a7 is also pinned. And the only move is to take ab6 because queen b6 will be trapped after bishop a5. So knight b6, ab6 and queen a8, white just wins the exchange. Let's see another example, and this is the game of Karpov against Xom. Black has an extra piece and a pawn. It is very difficult to imagine here that white is winning. It seems that all pieces and squares around the king is safe and protected, and also the rook on d7 is under attack. But Karpov here came up with a brilliant idea, clearing the diagonal, b8 h2 diagonal for the queen to give mate to black king. Knight f5. So there is a huge threat, queen h2. But can you tell me what happens if knight takes d7? I hope you saw the idea why knight f5 and not knight e4 or something else, because after queen h2, king g8, there is a mate, queen g3, king f7 and queen g7. So it is very important that the knight is on f5, controlling the g7 square. Controlling the g7 square as well. So there is a huge threat of queen h2, and in the game was played queen b8. If e takes f5, then after again queen h2 and queen g3, there is a mate on g7. Queen b8 was played in the game, but it did not help black from the mate, because again the knight on f5 is very strong, controls the g7 square, which gives ideas to white to clear the rank for the queen. Rook h7, knight h7, and queen g7 mate. I hope you enjoyed the examples. Stay tuned for rank clearance. See you soon.